we know that there's certain factors that make you more of a risk of reoffending than others. There's some people who will reoffend, and no matter what intervention you make, they're going to reoffend. People have a lot of mistaken assumptions about people who commit sex offenses and what makes them risky or not. For instance, we do know that people who only view child pornography, or what now is called child sexually exploitive materials or child sexual abuse materials, we know that people who do that pose a lower risk than someone who touches another person in a sexual offense or tries to touch them. That could even be contact by internet or by telephone. So we know the people who are at the greatest risk are those who touch, and we know that most sex offenders do not reoffend. And especially those that are only looking at things, and when I say only, I don't mean to minimize it, but only looking at images. Those individuals are the least likely, and the people who are the least likely to offend at all are women. So that's a very small percentage of the sex offender population, but women, and especially women who are only looking at child pornography. So that's the lowest grouping. But we do know there's factors, again, that increase your risk, like, again, prior sex offenses, like if the person was somebody you knew or didn't know, if the person is a family member or not, those are risk factors. Your age, again, a risk factor. Violations of any kind of court-imposed sanctions, a risk factor. Pedophilic interest. People who have pedophilic interest are, of course, more likely to reoffend against children. But we know most people with a pedophilic orientation or who are pedophiles don't offend against children. Most of them are just viewing child pornography images. So there's a lot of misconceptions about who's a danger and who isn't, where they're a danger, and how long they stay a danger.
Right. And I think that's the most troubling, and it traumatized me because at the time I had a young child, and my wife, we're going to pediatricians, and I'm meeting with all these people at the state that are experts in this, and like, you start to, I think people think like, that you can spot a sex offender by looking at them, or you could spot a pedophilic person by looking. And I would tell my wife, I'm like, listen, you can't, it doesn't work that way. Like, I wouldn't let my kids sleep over at their friend's house for the first few years. I was so paranoid. And when you start to see this world, and I'm sure, you live in that world too, like, we could talk about that a little bit, but what are some of the, can you talk about how, like, not common, but how it's indiscreet? It's not always a physical thing that you can see, right? Like they say, well, sex offenders have the glasses and they're wearing the monitors. And I'm like, yeah, those are the easy ones. But the ones that are, most of them are not
that easy.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, I sure
talk
wish
about
it was that easy, Danny. I mean, that would be remarkable.